Hi everyone, it's Katrina. Number 10. The Megalosaurus. Scientists have discovered over 1,000 species of dinosaurs since the 19th century. Even though dinosaurs ruled the Earth for an estimated 165 million years, we didn't even know about them until 200 years ago. We thought the planet was flat, the Earth was the center of the universe, and we didn't believe in dinosaurs. That all changed with the discovery of one particularly terrifying prehistoric beast. It was discovered by William Buckland in the early 1800s. He became the first person to name a dinosaur in an article he wrote in 1824. He called the monster Megalosaurus, which translates to big lizard. The early 1800s was a very different time in our world. William was a creationist, as many people were back then. He believed the planet was new and that the Bible was a book of historical facts. He had a really tough time trying to explain the fossilized bones of what was clearly a monster. So he turned to the Bible for answers. He first identified the dinosaur as being a monster that was killed in the flood. Dinosaur as a term didn't come around until 20 years later, when English biologist Sir Richard Owen categorized the Megalosaurus and newly discovered iguanodon as Dinosauria. In the years that followed, just about every fossilized beast with big teeth was assumed to be the same dinosaur. They were all categorized as the Megalosaurus during the early days of paleontology. Hey, you have to start somewhere. The Megalosaurus was an exciting first find, and a lucky one at that. This was a terrifying creature, a truly big lizard from the Middle Jurassic. It lived in Europe 155 million years ago. It could grow 30 feet long and weigh 2,200 pounds. It was a ferocious predator with teeth like oversized razor blades that could chew through bone. No wonder people thought its remains were that of a biblical monster. Number 9. Jellyfish Predator. Scientists believe they have identified the first predator in the world, the very first animal that decided it was easier to eat other animals than go grazing for nutrients in the environment around them. This prehistoric beast lived 560 million years ago. It was a relative of our modern jellyfish and also related to corals. To celebrate the immense discovery, researchers named the creature after David Attenborough, although this wasn't a first for David, who already has 40 species of plants and animals named after him, both alive and extinct. The name of the animal is Aurora lumina attenborough, and it is the ultimate predator. It was found in the Charnwood Forest of England, a rich source of fossils. The creature lived just before the Cambrian explosion, a time when life forms were beginning to spread across the world in a way they never had before. Over just a few million years, the oceans were suddenly bursting with various forms of life. It was a literal explosion of evolution, but this predator evolved into its peak form about 20 million years before that explosion started. It beat all the other predators to the punch. Dr. Phil Wilby says it is now the earliest creature ever found to have a skeleton. But its skeleton wasn't made of vertebrae. It had a tough exoskeleton similar to hard coral. It stretched about 8 inches long and had a head of wispy tentacles that it used to catch phytoplankton and other tiny creatures. It lived in a time when the earliest marine animals were evolving. The A. attenborough may have been the first creature to make use of the sudden abundance of animal food. And now for number 8, but first, it's shout-out time! I want to say a big thank you to Cindy Grayson and Julia Ludwig for supporting this channel. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more videos about prehistoric creatures. And let me know your favorite down below. Number 8. Dinokyrus. The Dinokyrus is one of the most mysterious beasts from the Mesozoic era. It was only recently that archaeologists uncovered a new pair of fossil specimens and finally unlocked the secrets of the terrible hand dinosaur. The creature was first uncovered in Mongolia in 1965. Researchers found a pair of arms unlike anything they had ever seen before. The arms were unbelievably long, about 8 feet from the shoulder to the wrist. Just try to imagine an animal that had arms longer than your entire body. The mysterious arms also came complete with 3-fingered hands, and at the end of each finger was a claw like a scythe. It was clear that the limbs belonged to a new type of meat-eating theropod. However, researchers didn't have the rest of the pieces. All they had were the incredibly long arm bones and no other fossils. That remained the case for almost 50 years. Finally, in 2015, 2 new specimens of Dinokyrus were found. But when the new skeletons were unearthed, researchers suddenly had entire bodies to fully reconstruct the terrible hand dinosaur. They soon learned that the Dinokyrus was a bird mimic that lived in Asia about 100 million years ago. The preposterously huge bird-like reptile was a freak of nature, but in a good way. It could grow 40 feet and weigh 7 tons, making it the biggest bird mimic dinosaur ever discovered. It weighed about as much as a Tyrannosaurus rex, although it was most likely a vegetarian. It used its long arms and claws for raking in plant matter. And finally, the Dinokyrus had an extremely small brain. For an animal that looked like a giant bird, it wasn't nearly as smart as one. Number 7. Brigmofaceter. The Brigmofaceter was a prehistoric whale that lived during the Miocene era, about 20 million years ago. Its home was around the island of Japan. It wasn't a very large whale, only growing to about 21 feet long, but it was a ferocious carnivore. It had teeth in its upper and lower jaw that allowed it to hunt everything from fish to squid, maybe even other whales. We don't know much about its hunting behavior, but scientists have suggested the whale may have used echolocation. We don't have many fossils of the prehistoric whale, so there are some facts missing about its physiology. Scientists say it wouldn't be that big of a stretch to think the Brigmofaceter had the spermaceti organ, the same one that sperm whales have that allow them to use echolocation. In all truth, the prehistoric whale wasn't much different from modern whales. It most likely even lived in a pod and had similar family values. What we do know is that the Brigmofaceter was on another ancient creature's dinner menu. It was a major prey item for the prehistoric shark known as the Megalodon. Both predators swam the oceans at the same time, but the Megalodon was about 3 times bigger. The Megalodon was an apex predator who specialized in hunting big game like whales. Since they swam in the same waters, Brigmofaceter would have been fair game for the mega shark. Number 6. The world's first animal. Fossil imprints that look like the underside of a mushroom cap are all the evidence we have of the oldest known animal in our planet's history. Researchers discovered the imprints of pancake-shaped creatures in the 1940s. As science got better at understanding these things, we came to realize the pancake monsters, known as Dickinsonia, were ancient. They've now been confirmed as the most common residents of our oceans 558 million years ago. That was the Ediacaran period, when most living things were microscopic. But as the rest of the life on our planet was only a few millimeters in length, the pancake animals were almost 5 feet long. They would have been true giants, much larger than any other living animal. For a long time, the size of the pancake animals has baffled scientists. These things lived many millions of years before the Cambrian explosion, when animals started getting big for the first time. Scientists have wondered if the Dickinsonia was an animal at all, but rather a huge, single-celled organism or a bacterial colony. A team of researchers recently wanted to confirm the scientific facts of the Dickinsonia once and for all. Jochen Brox from the Australian National University led the team. They examined the biomarkers preserved in a set of fossils found in Russia. Researchers were able to determine that the Dickinsonia fossils contain 93% cholesterol. This means they were real animals. These are now the oldest animals that we know about in the whole world's history. Can you believe it? Number 5. The wildebeest's cousin. Scientists recently found the fossil of an ancient and mysterious creature in a stream bed in Kenya. They were doing research on Kenya's Rusinga Island when they found the remains of a creature named Rusingorix. The animal was kind of like a wildebeest, only part dinosaur and very unusual. It roamed the African savanna 75,000 years ago and had a nasal structure almost identical to that of a dinosaur. Millions of years ago, before the asteroid killed the dinosaurs, there was a type of dino called the hadrosaur, or what you may know as the duck-billed dinosaur. These creatures had crests on their heads that were likely very colorful and used to attract mates. The prehistoric Rusengorix had a very similar structure on top of its head, except the Rusengorix wasn't a dinosaur, it was a mammal. Since the extinction of the dinosaurs 66 million years ago, no other animal has ever had such a protrusion on top of their head. Nobody except the wildebeest's cousin from the African savanna. Scientists have no idea why a random mammal in Africa evolved a feature last seen by duck-billed dinosaurs. The best excuse they can come up with is something called convergent evolution. This is when random organisms independently evolve identical features, such as wings and scales. The Rusengorix lived a lifestyle very similar to hadrosaurs, who may have also used their crests to communicate vocally in a dinosaur language. It could be that because of their environment, the Rusengorix evolved a similar apparatus. What other mammals remind you of dinosaurs? Let me know in the comments. Number 4. The turkey dinosaur. Paleontologists in southeastern Australia recently discovered a new species of prehistoric monster. It's called the Diluviocursor pickeringi, and it was about the size of a turkey. Its fossilized remains were found inside a collection of 113 million-year-old rocks near Cape Otway. Dr. Hearn from the University of Queensland says the new dinosaur was a type of ornithopod, a small animal with 2 legs that spent its time grazing through grassy fields just like wild chickens. Researchers found that the D. pickeringi had extremely powerful leg-retracting muscles. In other words, it was almost certainly an incredible runner. Because it was so small and vulnerable, it needed to be able to take off like a rocket if it wanted to avoid being eaten. Scientists now know of 2 different kinds of closely related ornithopods in Australia during this time. The other was the Leah similar in size but with an extremely long tail. Its tail was so long, it was like a whip. Number 3. The jousting creature. 400 million years ago, there was a very weird animal living in the ocean. It was an ancient trilobite that had a trident-like structure growing out from its head. Scientists say it used its natural trident for jousting, just like how medieval knights jousted on horseback. But it also likely used its trident for getting busy with the trilobite ladies. Researchers say its trident could have even acted like a spatula, flipping over rival trilobites so that they couldn't interfere with mating rituals. The trilobite is called Wallicerops trifurcatus. There were a lot of different species of trilobite living on the ocean floor during the Devonian period. Most of them had some kind of spiky protuberance that they used for protection. They had spikes and stabby things poking out of their heads. But this one was unique. It had a gigantic 3-pronged fork sticking out from the front of its face. Researchers say it could be the earliest record of sexual combat in the animal kingdom. That's to say, the first example of 2 animals fighting over a mate. Whereas all the other trilobites developed self-defense mechanisms, the Wallicerops trifurcatus evolved to fight other males for dominance. Number 2. Prehistoric sperm whale. Scientists have just found the best preserved fossil of a prehistoric sperm whale ever. It was discovered completely intact in Peru after rotting in the ground for 7 million years. The specimen was discovered in the Ocucaje Desert, a few hundred miles from the capital, right beside the Pacific Ocean. Normally, scientists only find scraps of whale fossils, fragments of teeth, pieces of jaw, maybe some ear bones. But this time, they found a fully intact fossil with all the bits and pieces. The creature is known as the Ocucaje macroraptor sperm whale, and it lived during the Miocene era. It wasn't the biggest whale in history, only growing about 15 feet long. Researchers say that because of its small size, it must have been incredibly agile and quick. During the Miocene era, 23 to 5 million years ago, marine predators were huge. For this sperm whale to survive being so small, it must have been able to outmaneuver its enemies. Researchers from the Natural History Museum in Lima say the sperm whale was unique and that it likely didn't eat squid or octopus like other sperm whales. Instead, it focused its effort on hunting penguins and small marine mammals. It also had a specialized nose that could emit sound waves so powerful they could stun other animals. That's basically a superpower. Number 1. Prehistoric monster of Antarctica. Thanks to Google Earth, a strange and potentially prehistoric creature has supposedly just been found in Antarctica. A conspiracy theorist claims to have found the skeletal remains of said creature about 50 miles from the Antarctic coast. Using satellite images, they zoomed in on a very large skeleton deposited in the middle of the frozen wasteland. It appears to be around 20 feet long, completely intact, and it looks as though it recently thawed. The beast may have been frozen for thousands of years, maybe even millions of years. Some have speculated the skeleton could even belong to a dinosaur that died 65 million years ago, before Antarctica was first frozen. We don't have any concrete answers right now. All we really have are blurry images taken from Google, although there does appear to be a prehistoric skeleton in the pictures. The creature was found in an area devoid of ice, meaning it may have been frozen until recently, but it may also just be the remains of a seal that got a bit too far from the water. It does look an awful lot like a seal skeleton. What do you think? Thanks for watching! Which terrifying prehistoric creature would you love to see around today? Let me know in the comments below. Remember to subscribe if you haven't already, and come back soon. Bye!